Hello? Rachel, how are you? If you can hear me? You are muted.
Thanks for educating us about this law. This is terrific.
Rachel, I have some good news on the issues that we brought up prior to Christmas. It looks as though all of those issues have been addressed.
Oh my God.
Yes, it was great news.
Well, I don't want to interrupt this show, but I trust that you will be emailing a number of us with the news as to all the ups and downs. This is so wonderful.
Yeah, I was pretty grateful to see the results. Yeah, I was in touch with NRDC and so it was good feedback, and John Kerry was looped in, and so was Gina McCarthy.
Oh my God, I'm getting the shakes. I haven't had lunch and I've got a sugar problem, so I beg your indulgence about my eating in front of you. But I'm so glad. I'm just so glad about this other news. It's very important. Wow, and you must feel finally, you can stop hanging on to the cliff.
I know. For everybody who doesn't know Rachel, she's an inspiration, and I met her a few years ago. She's a leader in the 350nyc.org group, and she's a tremendous amount of energy. You're a very special person, Rachel. We all appreciate you. So continue eating.
Thank you. I'm absolved. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Make sure you can see my screen. Let me know when you can. All right. Yeah. I'll assume you can. Okay. So for those of you who have been part of these discussions in the past, it's just that. It's a discussion. We're gonna bring the topics up. Stop me at any time. Ask me questions. If I don't have the answers, I won't make them up. I'll do some research and I'll get back to you. We could do these meetings every week. There's so many things to talk about.
Absolutely.
And the state of California has really got a lot of work in front of them to get these requirements in place and deployed, but they have a lot of resources to do it. So if I miss anything, don't hesitate to stop me. And Steve's here, so he usually will jump in and throw a comment or two my way. So, all right. 2 very important dates for everybody, and I'm going to give you a caveat to the second bubble on the right. 750 GWP limit on new equipment starting in 2025. Starting in 2024, chillers cannot use certain high GWP HFCs in new equipment. Smaller systems are likely going to have a lot of natural refrigerants. But the issues related to the natural refrigerants will be governed by the state fire marshal. Now, the reason that this is such a very messy topic is because the state of California, for the issues on the right, retail food operations, has broken it down really into 2 groups, large and small. And small does not mean really small. I mean medium-sized small means you're under 20 pieces of equipment. That's pretty substantial number of pieces of equipment. So if you have more than 20 pieces of equipment, you'll have different responsibilities than those who have under 20 pieces of equipment. I'm going to stop there and let anybody ask me any questions they want on that topic. And silence. I'm going to double back because it's a very important distinction. And and I've got another sheet up here over here, a little cheat sheet that Elizabeth shared with me, because Elizabeth did all this work. She did an amazing job. And by the way, I should start off with a Happy New Year to everybody. I've been so inundated with issues around California and the federal government the last week, I forget that we had a New Year. So anyways, Happy New Year. And anyway, so if you have, these are all relate to over 50-pound systems, and you will have to achieve a corporate-wide leak rate, not very difficult to manage. It's just another item that you'll want to keep on your horizon, but you have all the way until 2026 to get that under control. So 150 and 750, 2022 and 2025. And air conditioning equipment, just so you know, is anything that's not cooling food at this point. All right. If you're a retail food operation for the next few years, you're already registered, there's really no change. There will be limits on what you can install, and you want to start paying attention to your corporate-wide leak rate. And your corporate-wide leak rate will be based on a baseline year of 2019. So it's whatever your 2019 weighted average for your global warming potential at that location was. And there was a lot of HFC-based systems at that time. We've seen a lot of retrofits. So most people will be in pretty good shape to be able to achieve that rate. And by the way, the rate is roughly 55%. I'm looking at this weighted GW average of less than 1,400 or 55% reduction in over your 2019 year. I want to make sure that makes sense. All right. The next screen will kind of flush this out a little. Retail food, pay attention to the greenhouse gas potential of your installed inventory and your weighted GWP. If you're a member of Green Chill, which I'll share with you on the next slide, you're already in good shape and being able to manage that. So you want to see a reduction in that store of roughly 55% 2019 over any other year. All right. So, and here we mentioned it, companies owning or operating 20 or more retail food facilities in California and national supermarket chains operating fewer than 20 is the limit. That's the cutoff. Over 20, under 20. All right. Corporate-wide leak rate, last deadline is 2030. So it starts in 2026 for those with greater than 50 pounds. And Elizabeth, stop me if I get this wrong. With a weighted average GWP of less than 2,500 or 25% greater reduction over 2019, that has to be in place by 2026. Did I get that right, Elizabeth?
Yeah, no, that sounds right.
Okay, you're just being nice. Awful quiet out there today. All right, so that's the corporate-wide leak rate, very important. Air conditioning, here are the things that you want to pay attention to. 750 GWP limit. It's been moved back to 2025, so we don't have to worry about the 2023 deadline. The registration of your air conditioning equipment is not required year over year, but there is a one-time registration allowed, and this will greatly help your leak rate. Air conditioning equipment tends to leak less than refrigeration equipment, so by including your air conditioning equipment in your corporate-wide leak rate,
wow,
one-time registration, this will really be a great way for large companies to transition and manage that number well.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, you still have to track all end of life for systems over 2 pounds. So you'll want to keep these on your radar. All right, there is a fourth R coming to CARB. Right now it's the 3 R's, registration, recording, and reporting. The fourth R is reclaim.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a great one. This is where the state has most of their work cut out for them, because we so far have not had a successful qualified reclaim registration process.
That's right.
And so this is a big hurdle. And we've been working with the state on this since last month. I think they know what they're up against. They're not alone in this. It has never been easy to do this process of registering reclaim. We've seen things like diluted reclaim, or where reclaim becomes part of virgin supply stocks. This is actually calling out very specifically a term called reclaim. Presently, AHRI does not have a term for reclaim. Reclaim and virgin gas are identified exactly the same. So this isn't about the quality of the material, this is about its origins.
Right.
If you own a grocery store or any commercial environment and you have more than a few properties, it is highly advisable to take control and ownership over your inventory. What that means is, if you own it, you'll know its cycle of life. Whereas if you turn this material over to a third party to handle it for you, you may lose visibility to this material. And if it gets diluted and then it doesn't get properly credentialed, it'll be very hard to qualify it as reclaim. So at this point, without having seen the state's specific benchmarks and requirements for how they register things, it's easy for me to tell anybody who's on this call that if you control your inventory by turning it over to a reclaimer immediately, so that's not under your control, and then managing the inventory with the reclaimer, meaning give them some type of very specific guidance about how you want to see that work, and you can follow up later and I'll help you with some of those things if you need it. That way you'll know specifically what's reclaimed and what's not. And this reclaim would come from your stores that you're shutting down, or inventory that you're decommissioning. And right now, a lot of that gas makes its way back into the marketplace, but 100% of it gets vented eventually, and that's what the state wants to cut down. And then secondly, it would also be important to note that roughly 23+% of all of that reclaimed gas is mixed, so it's unusable later on. So there's a lot of ways to manage that. We're happy to help. We used to do that in a previous life, so we're familiar with all of the requirements. But since the state is going to require that manufacturers use 10% of gas, reclaimed gas in new equipment, reclaim will become an important source for the future. And right now, there are no present restrictions on the source in or out of California. So that means if you own a few operations in another state and some in California, you can take that reclaim from the other state, move it through a reclaimer, and then bank on it for California. So it'll be a big help in the future. So 2021 will be a big year for the state of California as they evolve through this process to better identify what those boundary lines will look like. All right. This is the helpful resources. If you need this, just let me know. Even drop a message in and we'll get you either one of these records. But the top one, the prohibition chart, is related to the SNAP 20 and 21, and it's specific for California. And it could apply to several other states as well that are also in the process of adopting SNAP 21. And that's kind of it. I'm going to go back to the beginning because nobody asked me any questions about this. So there are a lot of options in the material world for the 750 air conditioning number. There are tighter options on the food retail side, but those are evolving pretty quickly. I don't have specific answers about materials, but I'm happy to talk about them. And if you're a service provider and you're on the phone and you're handling recovery or reclaim for a grocer, I think it'd be a great conversation for you to have. and ask them if they would like you to bank it for them. It's not something you've probably ever been asked or thought about in the past, but it could be a very important service in the future.
Yet some of the refrigerants will require code standards to change and be adopted by the local authorities before some of those A2Ls can be acceptable. Correct?
Yep. Yeah, the mechanical codes are not fully available or updated yet related to the flammable refrigerants, but they're all generally going to fit one profile, about 1.5 kilos, or let's say 3.5 pounds and down. So this is going to be self-contained, under 3.5 pounds. They're still working on how to service them, where they can be serviced. So we have definitely new issues here, safety-related issues.
I'm talking about the larger charge in the A2Ls, not the...
Oh, the A2L, the larger charge. Yeah,
yeah.
they're still waiting on that. Rachel, yes, this is all commercial, correct. I think the one advantage the state of California has over a lot of other states in this process is their reporting. Technically, there is no allowable leak limit. So the minute an appliance leaks in California, you have to fix it. So that's nice because it's very cleanly defined. There's no guesswork. There's no subterfuge about do I have to fix it only if it goes over 10%? Do I have to fix it if it's, comfort cooling versus refrigeration? The process is to fix it immediately regardless.
They did quantify it though. If you add 5 pounds or 1% of the full charge, that's a leak.
Yes.
In the beginning they didn't, but they ended up having to do that.
Yeah, and they were trying to fight this concept of putting leak limits in. They didn't want to conflict with the federal government, and it's a good thing they didn't, because the new federal regulation that was passed last week as part of the COVID Act does have, COVID Funding Act, does have very specific wording about what the states can and cannot do. And so California did a nice job of navigating between the boundaries laid out by the federal government and the missing requirement at the state level. And I think the corporate-wide leak rate will be easy for people to evaluate, and really easy to value 2019, their year-over-year improvement from 2019. And the first year you really have to display that as 2026. And there's all kinds of other wording in there related to what new equipment is, what's a retrofit, what's a remodel versus a new store. We can answer those questions in an email if anyone has them, but the state did a good job of listening on that one. If anything, they were aggressive with the 150 on the retail food side. So, all right, no questions so far. It could be early in the year. Maybe no one's had coffee. Maybe we should send out Starbucks cards ahead of the meeting.
How many people will drive to Arizona to buy their groceries starting in 2026?
I think we'll all be ordering groceries online, Steve. It won't matter.
Delivery.
Right.
Oh boy.
Yeah, if you're starting a new location from the ground up, you'll probably do as much as you can to get off the ground before the end of 2022. But if you take over an existing location or you're running an existing location, and upgrading it, it's a very different set of expectation. Yes, Andre, yep, I can make sure we share these slides afterwards. There, just to keep going, I mean, we got a half hour and anyone can drop off at any time. We will share the slides so you have them. And the slides will have the links. And we will share a little cheat sheet that goes along with it. That'll be helpful for you to use when you're thinking about this. But what I would say is, this isn't the only change coming this year. It's one of many. There are some states that have already made changes, other states that have also shown some interest in adopting California's registration process. And I think that's valuable information to have. And I think if you're following a good stewardship process, you're going to be fine. And most of this is less paperwork and more planning. And so it's knowing what you've got now, for an installed base, and what's your GWP equivalent of installed capacity at the store. What did it look like in 2019? You can start asking yourself those kind of questions. Let's see, Rachel, Joe asked a question. Joe, the 150 is the GWP limit for new equipment starting in 2022. Or new stores, new locations. And Rachel, California started inspecting commercial equipment in 2010, and they ramped up and escalated that. They started with larger systems, moved to medium, and then smaller systems, which are still fairly large, over 50 pounds, over the next 4 years. So by 2015, 2016 was the first reporting year, if I remember correctly, for those locations, for all locations. And I think right now, I don't want to get this number wrong, but I believe there are around 5,800 registered facilities in CARB in California. So it's a fairly substantial number, but and those are 5,800 primarily refrigeration facilities. Southern California in SCAQMD's territory, which is the 5 counties around LA, they have a very specific set of requirements for air conditioning, but they don't have any limit presently on the GWP of the air conditioning units there, comfort cooling units. Whitney, question on resource for various state updates. The U.S. Climate Alliance has the best data, but they don't have a public platform to share it. AHRIs occasionally will get out some notifications on the topic. You really just have to keep your ear to the ground, because these states, they do a little bit of coordination about how they build those regulatory structures, but they don't do a lot of outreach related to how the regulation will impact the population. It's really being a stakeholder and continuing to listen. State of Washington, for instance, each one of them, Washington, you have to register with their group. Oregon, California, Colorado, Maryland, New Jersey, Vermont, Rhode Island, Connecticut. I know I'm missing one. Those are the key states. Oh, yep, Leah. Yep, the NASRC is not a bad job. That's a good point. If you're a member of the NASRC, you can also get information there as well. And a lot of these groups, they'll track the requirements, and just bear in mind, some are more, will lean in one direction, some will lean in another. Everybody's got a constituency that they represent. So just keep that in mind and use each of these as a resource. But in addition to all of these, I always suggest, you get signed up on the listserv for each of the states. Joe, is there a mandate to report leak rates for systems less than 50 pounds outside of California? The less than 50 pound issue, no. First of all, let me start with no. But the less than 50 pound threshold might be one of the things that's on the table this year. I don't know for sure, but I just finished reading the federal requirement under the House bill. What is it? I have it here so I can pull it up. Not that that's what I plan to talk about, but I don't mind sharing it. Oh, I don't have it. 4447. If there's going to be a change in the threshold, it'll be under 4447. I don't see that happening right now, though. Not yet. Any questions by anybody else? Does anyone have anything they want to ask, add? This is really not a lecture. We're not selling anything. We're not trying to convince anybody of anything. Some of these forums, people come together and start asking each other questions. So sometimes Steve and I attack each other. Hasn't happened today, but we're not over yet, right, Steve?
I don't live in California.
No. But we do a lot of work there, and most of the grocers have already put together some type of plan. The hardest part that this audience is going to face is the GWP limits. I mean, these are aggressive. 150 is a very aggressive number, so it'll be a tough one to meet. And the 750 is probably manageable. There's a lot of these materials are on the market, and I guarantee that we'll see new ones over the next 2 years. That'll help fill this in. So. Did anybody here participate in the state's meeting last month? I don't know if you did, but AHRI alone contributed 25 documents to the state information database in response to all kinds of issues. Although I think the 150 limit is a challenging number, the second biggest challenge is going to be the fourth R, which is reclaim. So there are some formats out there you can look to if you want to get an idea of what might happen. Those would be the climate action reserves, ODS protocol. But every single climate action reserve ODS protocol project involves a lengthy review of the origins of the material. I spoke to a number of people at Climate Action Reserve over the last month. This is going to be a tough one because right now each project requires that a consultant or advisor review each document to certify the origins of the material. That's why if you own or manage or service equipment, it's a very important conversation for you to have really starting now about what to do with recovered material. Starting to build your own bank. If you had asked me 6 months ago, I wouldn't have said that, but considering how hard these market programs are to pull together, I would advise it today. So let's see. It says I missed a question. Rachel, was there resistance from retailers? I think there's anxiety from retailers, and I think there was a lot of resistance from AHRI about the time frame, but not about the goal.
Mm,
One of the things I noticed from everybody was a commitment to success.
wow.
It's been coming a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The first conversations related to this started in 2018. Actually, they started socially in 2017, but by 2018, they were more formal.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys need any help with introductions uh, to any of these people at the state, just let us know. I found them to be incredibly reasonable and open. Um, there's nothing we can do about these numbers up here. But as far as the reclaim goes, very open. I spoke to them just before Christmas, and um, they seemed open to suggestions on how to make that work. They don't want it to fail. I think suppliers will do what they can now. California is an important market to hit those targets. Having been around for the CFC conversion, nobody thought we would convert away from CFCs. It was a doomsday scenario in 1994, but we managed to do it.
Hmm.
So I think between the links and the cheat sheet, it'll give you an idea of at least what to expect. We invited some engineers to be part of the discussion. I personally sent out 2 emails, but we didn't get any feedback there. Would have been nice to have them on the call. But I don't think they have a game plan yet either. Elizabeth, did I miss anything?
Don had sent a question about A2L in the States.
Oh, Dawn, sorry. Let's take a look. I see it. Where's my little box? It is when we'll start to see A2L being used in the States. Well, soon. There's another meeting on Thursday about A2Ls with Chemours, sorry. And we are seeing a lot more. I think this is a place where NASRC can be valuable. I don't know if you've participated in any of the NASRC programs, but they do a really nice job here. That's actually a good group. We do belong to that group as well, just so we can learn about what's happening in these other spaces. I think, Don, I saw you had your Emerson banner up behind you. Emerson's done an amazing job of information and feedback. I don't know a better group right now. They're phenomenal. I joined podcasts for webinars for them as well, and I learned a lot from Emerson. So, believe it or not, I think I learned more from Emerson these days than AHRI. I'd love to see more. I don't know if you participated in the AHRI's 2 big webinars over the last 2 months. It was very, very lengthy and very, very in depth. And there was a lot of money spent on the A2L study. And if you need a link to that, I'm happy to share those. Just let me know, and I'll make a note. And Joe, you might be interested in that as well. You seem to be a sponge for these kind of things.
Ted, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, if you could send that, it'd be awesome. This is Don.
Okay.
But yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. We might even have the full recordings. I know we have a lot of the documentation. Very lengthy, but very, very good. Very thorough. Joe, I'm putting you on the list to get those as well. Can't have a busy signal on a computer, so anybody can get through. All right. Anybody else wants the links to those AHRI meetings over the last 2 months, just let me know. Oh, Whitney, I got you down as well. Okay. All right. I value everybody's time, and I really appreciate the last 30 minutes. Happy to keep talking, but I don't have much else to share other than the links.
Mm, mm, mm.
We will be talking about each of the states over the next 2 months. And then ultimately, we'll also be talking about the federal government probably 90 days out. Just to give you guys a brief outline on what's going to happen at the federal level. Number one, they're going to assemble an administrative board to oversee the change in regulatory structure to include all things HFC. Two, they have 270 days from last week to put the regulation in place. So 9 months. So by September, we can expect to see something. That's not a lot of time to get this done. This is a lot of work for them to do. And then last, once the regulations go in place, the phase outs will begin. So in addition to all of the limits on availability for material, will be service control, service and maintenance requirements. I say service control, but and it'll take them some time to get those worked out. But the phase out's very specific. It's already published. Plenty of road runway here to get all this done. This is not as aggressive as the state of California, so it's easy to accomplish. And then as that evolves, we'll continue to share the updates there. Joe, it's nice to see you. Whitney, thanks for joining.
You.
Rachel, I can't get enough time with you, so thank you for participating.
Hey, thanks, Ted. I appreciate it.
And I'll make sure you get all that as well.
Okay. I sent my email just in case. I appreciate your time.
I grabbed it. I appreciate yours as well. Guys, have a happy new year, and thank you again.
Thank you. See you.
All right, bye.